Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing model releases. Let's get going. Okay, so let's go to the source here. We're going to talk about what Adobe Stock says about model releases. I like this protect yourself and others because that's what this really is all about. It is about protecting you, and it is about protecting the company and about protecting the model as well. So in a nutshell, you can't use copyrighted material in your imagery. You also can't use people's likenesses because they own their own likeness in an image without their permission. When in doubt, you should always have a model or property release for the commercial use of an identifiable person, place, or object as the subject of your work. So I suspect that the subject of your work is an interesting line here because you can get away with it if it's not the subject. So a building that's not the subject, maybe some artwork that's in the background, or even unrecognizable people that are part of a large scene, you can sometimes get away with not needing a model release. However, in this situation with these women, they absolutely would recognize themselves in this situation, and so you would need a model release here. You must get permission from your subjects before publishing for commercial purposes, no matter if they are a professional model, a friend, a family member, a stranger, or even yourself. You need to use model releases to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Ha! I see what you did there. And again, self-portrait, you need to do one for yourself. Luckily, you only need to do one for yourself. So yes, I'm clinging tight to my model release from 10 years ago because I still look fabulous in that. You also need a model release for any illustration or vectors that are based on actual real people that I assume are quite recognizable. So Adobe have their own model release form that you could print out, and I highly recommend keeping a printout of some kind of physical model release form in your bag when you go out on a shoot, just in case the app fails, which has happened. So I think we can tell I'm not being sponsored by Easy Release. That app has failed actually on me once when I was doing a model shoot, and I was very lucky to have a backup in my bag. Once you've got your model release, you then send it to the portal or any image manager and they store them there, and then you just click them to use them again and again. So you don't have to re-upload them every single time. Property release is a very similar thing. If it's a recognizable property or something that's got a copyright over it, you're going to need a property release. Now, if it's not the subject of the photo, for example, it's a skyline. So a property release form, very similar. And then just quickly, trademark or any kind of branding or logos. I've mentioned this before, you cannot have this on any of your photos. I'm actually going to do a series of editing vids on how to get rid of logos and how I do it. I've got one coming very soon. Look out for that one somewhere. Adobe also do editorial, these kind of trademarked things. They don't do editorial though, that involve people. In addition to the old school paper releases, the other way that you can do your model releases nowadays is to do a digital version through an app. So the app that I use is called Easy Release. This is recognized by Getty, iStock, and every single agency that I use. So it stores all of your releases in the cloud. I also have them set up to go to Dropbox. And as you know, I also keep copies of them on my computer hard drive on every single year of my archive hard drives as well. So I've got so many copies of these model releases. I'm unlikely to ever lose one, but knock on wood. So let's just quickly run you through. It's very easy to make a new release. So we're going to say model. Now here I've got a custom setup. It did cost a little bit of extra money, less than $20, so that I can have custom dates. And the reason you might want that is for people who are in your immediate family, you can do year-long releases. So you don't have to keep on making model releases. So a year-long release runs from January 1 to December 31, and you can have that for your children, your parents, and even my in-laws. I've made year-long release for each of them. That way, so if we have a family gathering and I manage to get some shots of them for stock, I don't have to ask them to re-sign things. I do have a really strong relationship with all my family members and a strong verbal agreement that this is okay. So we'll just create a very simple model release here. It will be pre-filled, so once you start making a few, you'll actually get all these pre-filled parts, which makes things a bit faster as well. So let's say we're going to do a year-long release. Okay, so date of birth. If your date of birth in here has your model being a minor, it will prompt you then to have a parental name and signature. Otherwise, we'll just say that he's not a minor. There you can set your ethnicity. So from here, you're going to take a photo of your model. Oh, that guy? Let's do this guy. Okay, so now we have our model release done. It's got our custom end dates that I've chosen. Otherwise, you would put in the date of the shoot. Not the date that they're signing, by the way. It should be the date of the shoot, and that needs to match the metadata on your camera. Okay. So then we simply have the model sign first. The model can read all of this information. It's great to be able to take a photo of your model on the spot. This adds another layer of protection for all of you that they did actually sign this agreement as part of the shoot. And our witness is Woody. Good on you, mate. And then very easily, I've got all these things set up in here, so I have all of my photographer details already set up in the app. So then all I do is I send this to myself and it turns up as a PDF or a JPEG, or both actually, I think. And then they're basically ready to use. So it really couldn't be simpler. Okay, so let's have a look at my portfolio and I'll show you how and when I do model releases and how I create them. So first of all, my number one tip is to do as many model releases as you possibly can. So even if it just includes a body part, I still include a model release. This photo still includes a model release for my husband's hands. Now, I don't always have model releases for every single one, but say this image that I shot of a tradie, I had a release for him already. Just because his face isn't in the photo, I've still included the model release. It's always better to err on the side of caution, and also designers and customers, especially in the USA, prefer released imagery. If they're buying your imagery from these sites, they prefer it. You're competing with thousands of other images, and if yours has a model release and the other one doesn't, you've just given yourself an edge over everyone else as to why someone might buy yours. Okay, the second type of release that you will use is a property release. So what I do is, for every property that I live in, I create a property release for that property. Even if you're renting, you can still legally fill out a property release for the property that you're in. That's absolutely fine. I've done that twice when we lived in Sydney, so it's all good. So here we go, having a look at what I've done here. We'll start with something simple. This one here, cat on the desk in my office. I've included a property release here because this was shot in my home office now where I'm currently living. So that one's nice and simple. Once again, look, I have a thing for shooting the cat in my office at the Sydney house. Again, shooting a teenager's bedroom. Anything I've shot at home where there's any indication of a semblance of a property, I've included a property release. So this simple shot here that I shot during the COVID year has a property release for the house and also a property release for the child who belongs to that hand right there. Okay, let's look at something slightly more complicated. So this photo I took of my office in my last house has 7 releases attached to it. So firstly, as I've just explained, it has the house release for the house where we just lived. Then the next release is an overall release for the artwork that's there. So all of those Polaroids together on the wall are considered a work of art. They're all mine. They're all my photos, and that's mine. The property release for that is actually a photo of that wall of artwork like that. Now, if those Polaroids weren't all mine, I wouldn't be able to sign a property release for that particular piece of artwork. Put a pin in that, we'll come back to that in a sec. And then the next releases are for all of the faces that you can see in there, which happen to be all my family. So then there is a release here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. This is an interesting one. This has a property release for the house that this was shot in, has a release for the child, and has a property release for that background which I created to go on the TV. Okay, this one is interesting because I have a property release for the person in the photo, a property release for the house that she's sitting in, and a property release for that artwork at the back, which I didn't create. That was created by my art teacher, and when I left Adelaide, she had an art show, and I wanted to buy some of her art as memorabilia for leaving. We were friends, and she signed a property release for me so that I could use these images and have them appear in the background of my stock photos. I'm not going to sell prints of her artwork. That's not the point of the property release. It was to allow me to include it, because when you include real artwork in your lifestyle photos, it adds that extra level of authenticity that other stock photos don't achieve, because people have shot them in studio and they don't have artwork, released artwork on the wall. So if you can actually paint yourself, that's awesome. It would be really advantageous for you to include your own artwork. Unobtrusive artwork, I would say. And it's not like you have to upload all of these all the time. Once you've uploaded them to your stock site, they're stored there. So it's really just a matter of clicking on them and selecting them each time. So it's just a mouse click to find them. So here's a fun tip. These are fun things that you can shoot as well if you're looking for things to shoot. Architecture, my favorite. You can shoot your house for stock. So tidy up, obviously, and shoot every room of your house, every room, every little nook and cranny. These are all stock photos, and because it's your place, whether you own it or not, you can sign a property release. Brilliant. If you don't have a release for the artwork, you can get very clever and do something like this, where half the door is obscuring the artwork on the wall there. And so that's how I'm able to get around having that hint of that artwork, but a property release was not required for it. So I still provided a release for the house and a release for the person. I know this is overkill, but this is what I was taught by my stock photography mentors, was if you can, you put a release on it. A lot of people won't shoot models because this part seems a little bit daunting, but people photos sell the best. Okay, well, hopefully I've made model releases seem less daunting. They're really not that hard once you get used to them. And once you start shooting people, that's where you're going to make more profit doing stock photography. So to avoid any more waffle, I will sign off. Back to work. See you later.